national speed limit section here, so I'll just drop it down a little bit into second. She definitely goes.
Hi everyone, welcome back to CMD and another video. No doubt from the title and B-roll that you've just seen, you're aware of what we're filming today. This is James's M140i and this is James, aka J Twitchett, or Twitch as he is known. James very kindly offered to take over presenter duties for the day and to walk us around and show us his car and his experience. Very quickly, before I forget, if you like the look of the threads, Twitch is wearing some of them as well. You can check those out at controlandshift.com. Any purchase made of the Car Mad Dad range helps us raise money for charity. So if you like what you see, have a look, do a buy, save a polar bear. Cheers. Very briefly, just before we get James in the car and leave him to it, as it were, I think it's worthwhile walking around some of the modifications and talking about some of the changes that Twitch has made to the car, because there's quite an extensive list.
Not that you'd know it by looking at the car.
Very good point. Not that you'd know it looking at the car. So I've just had a good walk around. You can't really tell too much difference from stock. A little bit of camber, a little bit of stance, but you wouldn't really know without really looking. What modifications have we made?
Probably the biggest one being the Bird's B1 suspension, which is based on Bilstein shocks and dampers that Birds tune to their own specification, which is ideally set up for kind of British bumpy B roads and be able to carry speed through those. That's probably the main changing mod for me. The other main one is BMW limited slip diff, which was fitted from factory on this one.
That's really rare.
Yeah, not that many people do it because it's relatively expensive. If you want the kind of M car feel with some decent traction and more predictable slides when you're pushing on through corners, limited slip diff is pretty essential and eradicates the one tyre fire. So it does have JB Plus boost controller, but that's probably as far as I'm going to take it from an engine point of view, because for me, I mainly drive this car on the road and it's running, I don't know exactly what it runs, and it runs 340 brake horse standard. I think it's probably 380 or so with the tune. Main reason for handling mods is I used to have a BMW M2 and I wanted to try and get a car that was as close to that, but with the benefits that an M-Lite brings. So the increased practicality, the better daily ability, and this is kind of a bridge between the two of them.
It's that good middle ground, isn't it? Okay, let's get James in the car and go for a drive.
So, off we go. A little bit of straight six raw to start the video. Hi everyone, I'm James, aka Twitch, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about my BMW M140. The car's a 2017 car. I picked this car up last year and I bought it from a lovely guy called Jeremy. So it has Harman Kardon, Pro Nav, cruise control, most of the mods that most people on these cars look for, basically. I think I bought the car on 9,000 miles. I've done 2.5 since owning it. It's had 3 services already. One thing to be aware of with M140s is if you drive them like they're built to be driven, they do need servicing more regularly than BMW would tell you they do. They have a tendency to go through oil filters quite quickly. So generally, if you're driving the car relatively spiritedly, I would suggest oil changes around maybe every 5,000 miles or so. Anyway, the modifications that are on the car, as we talked about a little bit when we were doing the walk around outside, I've always been interested in trying to make the best of a car, trying to make it the best it can be, and always more so from a handling perspective than from a power perspective. When you're driving on the UK roads, these cars have got plenty of power out the box. That said, this does have a cheeky JB Plus tuning box just to up the boost a little bit. Again, to get the kind of best out of the car. It's tuned by in other models such as the 340i and the 440i to have more power than this, so it can certainly run more boost without a problem. As we just go past a police camera van. Hello. Well, I have driven a standard M140 and I found that the standard shocks on that were not the best. Coming out of an M2 that I owned previously, it was lacking the kind of feel that I was looking for in a car that can sort of do everything really. I find that this car versus the M2 that I had previously is a much better daily. I drove up here as cautiously as I could. Just get past this car. As cautiously as I could, and I managed 38.5 mpg on an hour-and-a-half journey, which was a small amount motorway but most A and B roads, just to see really how much mpg you can eke out of this engine. It turns out quite a lot. Day to day I don't get anywhere near that. I probably get mid-20s, and if I'm going on a hard drive, low 20s or 18, 19, something like that. However, the car, in terms of being able to do both, I think the M140 out of the box is a brilliant car for doing daily duties, or if you want to go fast in a straight line. If you enjoy twisty B roads and track work, you will want to do some handling modifications to improve the feel. I think it's around 11 or 1200 pounds for the Bird's B1 suspension, but it is brilliant. This car has also had the M Performance Limited slip diff put on by Tony Lewis as a factory fit option from new. Improves traction greatly, no more one tyre fire, more predictable control out of fast bends, and just generally get more performance out of the car. Definitely money well spent. The next thing that this car's got is the M3 lower control arms and tension struts. So what they do is provide more front camber on the two front wheels, which improves the turn-in and the kind of steering feel through the car. I found that the stock M140 is a little bit floaty. What this does is just sharpen it up a little bit, and again kind of bridge the gap between a 1 Series and an M2 really. And now the steering feel on this is nice and pointy, does what you want it to. It's never surprised me so far in the 6 months or so that I've had it. So all in all, pretty happy with the steering. What I have done just to level things up is, from stock you can add a bit of negative camber into these cars. Just give it a little bit through here. You can add a bit of negative camber as well, just to even things up and improve the stance. It's also got the underbody brace, so if I'm not mistaken, I think the three-door M140s had additional bracing on the underbody, but for some reason, weight or otherwise, on the 5-door models they didn't have that. Again, it just stiffens up the bottom of the car, reduces the kind of slightly floaty nature that these can have out of the box, and just makes it more of an engaging drive. Coming into a national speed limit section here, so I'll just drop it down a little bit into second. She definitely goes. Absolutely nothing wanting in the performance area with this car. The torque is super strong. The gearbox, the ZF8 speed that's in this one, is really responsive. when this gearbox is in manual, it gives you the shifts you want when you want it. It's a little bit smoother, it's certainly better at slow speeds, and I think mated with this B58 engine is everything you need and want. So the reason I got this car and picked it up last November, I was in a finance agreement on my M2, and with my family expanding and not really knowing kind of what our financial situation is going to be in a couple of years, I decided to get rid of the M2. I managed to get a good price on it, which got me out of it without negative equity, and I basically jumped into this and bought it cash, so that I don't have the monthly payments and I don't have the commitment that I had on the M2 previously. That's the great thing about these cars, you can pick up a really good example one now for 20 grand. Just coming through Broadway now, and there is life on the streets of Broadway. I mean, the primary driver for getting the car was probably the fact that I got out of my finance agreement, but there are other reasons too. Primarily door number 3 and door number 4 that are sitting behind me. I've got a daughter and I've got a son very soon to be arriving on the planet, and having the 2 back doors is already proving pretty useful. There's also the added benefit of discreetness. As we mentioned on the outside, although this car's rapid and handles pretty well, to most people it just looks like a grey 1 Series. I've kind of wrestled with this a few times in my ownership so far. Coming from a bright blue M2 like Dale's, I used to enjoy the looks that I got in that car, the feel that I got when I was driving it, and you don't get that as much in an M140 as with the M2. However, it does have its benefits, such as dropping your kids off at school or turning up at work and just generally being a bit more discreet about your goings on. But then when you want to be able to go and have fun on the weekend, you absolutely can do in this car. It kind of does the best of both a little bit better. I guess the combination of those is what got me into this car. I still wanted to be able to go out with my friends on a Sunday blast and, you know, not feel like I was struggling to keep up, and I definitely don't in this car. So yeah, what were the other options when I was looking at buying this car? I'd already had a Mark 7 Golf R, so I kind of knew what those were about. It was a great car, but the thing that for me that lacks is kind of driver engagement. I found with the Golf R that I could pretty much have any steering angle input and any throttle level, and everything would always be okay. And that's fun for a while in terms of pointing and shooting and just aiming for the sunset, but it's not anywhere near as engaging as a high-powered rear-wheel drive car. You have to drive these cars, you have to understand how driving works to get the best out of them. For me, again, coming from an M2, it was like, do I want to give up that drive engagement? No. So there wasn't really another car that fitted my needs of being a kind of £20,000 fast, engaging car that's also good for kids. The other car that I was interested in, and I continue to be interested in now, is a F80 M3. You've got the back doors, you've got the S55 engine, but a decent one of those is high 30s, so again in a completely different league price wise to this car. So the M140 was pretty much the only and obvious choice for me at the time. Will I get an F80 M3? Quite possibly. It's very, very tempting. Will I get it soon? Probably not. For now, I'm going to enjoy this car for this summer. I'm going to take it on some track days, and I'm going to do more of this. Let's drop it down a gear and see how we go. And the car brakes well. I've upgraded the pads in this to M2 pads, courtesy of my good friend Ashley Horton. Just pushing it into this bend, feel the power go through the back wheels and push on. diff just pulls you through. Brilliant fun. Happy days. Thanks very much, guys. Dale, it's been a pleasure being on your channel. I hope I did you proud. And I look forward to more fun times this summer. Cheers, buddy.
And just like that, guys, the day is done. Just very quickly to close, a huge thank you to James for his time. He's a father, a very busy man in his own right, both professionally and at home with a baby on the way. So James, if you're watching, thank you for your time, really appreciate it, and for helping us grow this channel, this community of Car Mad Dads. For those of you new to the channel, Car Mad Dads is in the process of becoming a 100% non-for-profit charity. That means your views, likes, subscriptions is going a big way to making a big difference in people's lives. So if you like what you see, give us a like, hit that subscribe button, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Cheers.